I can't. So if someone is doing something you say you can't do, does that mean you can't do it? Or does that mean you're just bullshitting? So, when you say the words I can't, but, there's another, existing entity, aka another human, that's, actively doing what you say you can't, does that mean that you cannot do it? Or does that just mean that you're bullshitting? So when you say you can't quit the cigarette, when you say you can't put down the bottle, when you say you can't give up the weed, when you say you can't, but then again, we have a different existing entity in the universe, aka a different hominoid, a different human specimen, a different person, doing what you said you couldn't do. So that person is actively engaging in the activity that you said you couldn't do, right? Does that mean that you can't do it? Or does that mean that you're just bullshitting? And so when we look at your habits and, you say you can't give that up. You can't give this up. You can't give up something bad for something good. You can't replace the negative with a positive, and you can't move in a positive direction for yourself, in a positive, more evolved version of yourself. When you rid something negative and you grow out of that and you overcome that and then you replace that with something positive, what you just did right there was evolve. You developed yourself to a more sophisticated version of yourself. You leveled up into a higher version of yourself. You elevated beyond your limitation, which that negative habit was a limitation on your mind, because you have to understand that if you engage in negative habits, you're going to be a negative person. And if you disagree with that, it's because your neurons aren't firing off correctly in your fucking brain, and you're corresponding to, fictional, rudimentary cadences that don't fucking exist. So, if you indulge in negative habits, you are a negative person. If you indulge in positive habits, you are a positive person. And so when you say you can't give up the negative habit for a positive habit, when, there's a different, person, there's examples, there's people that are, exempted from what you can't give up and have replaced that for something that is more proactive, that corresponds to a higher level of proclivity, productivity, and you're over here saying that you can't do it. So if you can't do it, but other people are doing it, then you're just inferior to the people that are doing it. And that's fucking mathematics. That is logical, mathematical, that's a logical equation. If you say you can't do something that other people are doing, then you are inferior to the people that are actively doing it, because you could do it, but you said you couldn't, so you're mentally inferior. And that is deduced by your own conduct. So this is no, you are a mental slave to what you cannot give up, and thus you are a, inferior hominoid compared to the people that have gave up what you couldn't give up, that have overcame what you couldn't overcome. And now you're going to have to sit in the corner and hit your vape. And remember that Sigmund Freud said that, to take comfort in a cigarette, in a bottle, in a vape, is to be, taking, comfort. You're taking comfort, as on a titty. So, Sigmund Freud said that, you're sucking on a titty every time you indulge, in the substances. So you're really just looking for comfort. You're seeking comfort, and it's because you're too much of a bitch to confront what is uncomfortable, which is you being a weak pussy and indulging in everything that is, actively and passively killing you through time and space. The more you hit the vape, the more you disintegrate, and the more you dissipate through the fucking quantum continuum. So are you gonna understand that, you only live once, and to say that you can't do something that, thousands of millions of other people have done is to just render yourself mentally inferior and to not match the criteria of, evolving instead of devolving, to grow and to, overcome, to accept and to overcome instead of remain a fucking bum. Because every time you pick up that drink, every time you pick up that smoke, and you think you look cool, you look like a fucking bitch. And then when you drag your nuts like you earned some shit, when all you did was sit there in a fucking corner and passively kill yourself for, a good 15, 20 minutes to get a little feeling out of it, remember how much of a bitch you are. And then when you have people watching you that are going to look at you because you are a influence, if you are, a individual who has power, a certain level of power. Everyone has fucking power. Power is to be able to influence outcomes. So if you have the power to influence the outcome of someone else's behavior and to, demonstrate an act of inferiority, which is indulging in that negative habit, you now contaminated another human with the inferiority complex of having to indulge in a drink, indulge in a smoke, indulge in a vape to feel better about being a bitch. So remember that every time you indulge in that thing, whatever you're indulging in, and you say you can't give it up, you just rendered yourself mentally inferior. And I cannot get over this, because we have so many people that walk around on fucking earth entitled as fuck, like they, walk around with this energy like they are in a self-depleting organism failing at being a fucking primate. Because if you're not sober and fit and the monkey is sober and fit, then you're failing at being a fucking monkey. So before we, bring in, intelligence into the fucking, picture, into the, what the fuck are you even doing? If we took away, your identity and we just looked at your habits and evaluated you from that, what the fuck even are you? You're not even a fucking human. What the fuck even is that? That's a concoction of excuses and failure. So every time you fail yourself to not replace that negative habit with that positive habit, you are mentally inferior to the ones that have done it, the ones that are doing it, and the ones that have overcame, which you continue to falter and you continue to, just fall to. You're falling in this pit, and every time you fall, the pit gets deeper. So are you gonna, realize that, you're gonna be an inevitable failure if you can't give up what is actually, just taking away from your life? It's not even like, it's like, it's not even like you having this in your life is going to bring you some sort of power or some sort of growth or some sort of, internalized, intrinsic love. All it's doing is passively killing you and decaying your corpse, your vessel, 10x, 20x, 30x, 50x, depending on how much you indulge. And all it's doing is rotting you mentally, internally. And so when we look at your habits, if you're a dirty, habitual, indulger, then you are dirty-minded. If you, indulge in the drink, if you indulge in the porn, well, you are a dirty-minded individual, and, you're mentally inferior to the cleansely, to the more clean-minded individuals, because you are a failure, and you fail at being a fucking organism that doesn't fucking deplete itself. So you remember that you only live once, and every time you enjoy what is actively taking away from your life, and really just, you're subtracting your lifespan for a hit of hedonistic pleasure, which really just makes you a purposeless piece of shit. And if you're gonna do that to yourself, imagine what you would do to other people. If you're gonna sit there and destroy yourself, imagine what type of person you are behind the scenes. And that's where the fuck we stay away far from you, because what the fuck even is that shit? That's not a human. That's a self-depleting fucking organism. Now, you're either going to rise and elevate beyond what's going to continue to keep you in that circumstantial circumference on your mind, which is going to keep you limited to what is actively taking away from your life, when you, limit yourself to never overcoming what is going to elevate you beyond that. So you're going to stay addicted to the cigarette. You are going to die a bitch, and you're going to die a failure that never overcame what hindered them so much. So social media link in the description, mindset coaching in the description, fitness coaching in the description. Align with your higher self. On the program, we give you the macros. Boom, chop, chop, chop. Now you are in the body that you would actually want to be in. Now you are aligned with a body that is fit. We give you a workout. You got your weekly routine. You got your macro count. You hit your macro. you feel good for the day. You're high in vibration. You're aligned. You know, you're physically, mentally, and spiritually aligned, because what happens when you have to understand how your mind and your dopamine system and your neurological circuitry works. So every time you hit that macro count, you just re-establish to your mind who the fuck you are, which is that motherfucker who's right on the dot with his fucking macros. And when you hit that workout like a fucking brute savage and you push past the fucking rep range and you just continue to fucking go in a state of flow and you never fucking stop, you just reinforce to your mind who the fuck that beast in the mirror is. So every time you align with the program and you execute what you're supposed to do in orderly fashion, so you are doing what you're supposed to do all the time, you are going to come out the other end of this program as a fucking brute savage with a positive self-image that can, look at any blueprint and then absolutely fucking destroy it, absolutely outwork anybody in that field. You will be a master of yourself. You will no longer be dealing with having to overcome negative habits because you became the individual who overcame that. So now you're just a brute fucking savage ready to tear up any blueprint that is in front of them. And most people go their entire lives being a fucking docile, infertile, fucking inferior fucking bitch. So don't be another one of these pussies. Look in the mirror, realize you're a bitch, and then do everything to not die a bitch. That's the blueprint. Peace.